Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Crown Report. My name is Brittany. I'm speaking a little slowly as people are joining in. I know it takes like a second for the system to click on. Happy Tuesday. As Lynn has said, it is Tuesday, March 10th, 2026, and there is a lot you could say going on in the royal space right now. We do have obviously the Commonwealth Day yesterday and the protests that happened there, which I would argue is just definitely very common. It happens when you are at these type of events. But is some of this movement gaining steam? And how is the Republican movement, you could say, very, very much, I think, manipulating public sentiment to definitely go after Prince William? Because it's kind of disturbing what they're doing. And so just something to definitely keep a lookout for. And then we also have, obviously, Sarah Ferguson, the Princess Eugenie and Princess Beatrice, and everything going on, obviously, with the York side as well, that continues to go quite badly for everyone involved. And we will also be talking about Marius Borg-Holmby. There's some updates in the case, guys, and he asked to be let out of jail a bit early because he is currently in jail right now because of violating restraining orders and getting arrested again and these sorts of things. And that request was denied. So much going on today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We have a super chat already from Teresa who said, hello, Brittany and a chat. Thank you so much, Teresa. I do appreciate that. And we will go ahead and get into this because I think the Republic protests, I say Republican because it's hard to just do Republic. And it's just like, it feels like not plural. So I want to say Republican to like make it kind of more substantial, you could say, in a way. And I have experienced these protests in person. I meant to go and find like some of my videos and see if you can hear them in the background. I couldn't really find any, or didn't really have the time to look. But when you listen to them, sometimes I would say, especially the Commonwealth Day 2023, that's the only Commonwealth Day I have attended. And I will say this is, again, it's from personal experience, because sometimes I think people talk about things and it's like, well, have you ever actually been to a royal event in person? Because that does, I think, change the perspective. And one of the things, of course, that I've experienced, and this was in particular in relation to, I didn't really see the Republic movement when I was there in 2023, but I definitely saw the pro LGBT group. Man, they were screaming bloody murder for at least 30 minutes to an hour, screaming bloody murder behind me. And it was rough. It was rough to listen to. It was very, very obnoxious. And they had the right to protest. They have 100% have the right to protest, but I also had the right to find it annoying. Two things can be true at once. It can be their constitutional right and can be a very, very obnoxious at the same time. And part of their point is to be like loud and obnoxious and these sorts of things. So I understand they're trying to get attention. And so they have to do certain things to gain attention. And yes, it is true that sometimes the movement, there's like not a ton of people there. And sometimes there are more people there. Now, if you actually remember, this was actually quite scary looking back at it, just because having been in the crowd and experienced the coronation crowd, I need to do sort of, I'm going to try to do more of like retrospective videos with the members and stuff and these sorts of things. And when I was at the coronation, like it was an experience. I don't know if I would ever do it again, honestly, because it was very stressful, very long. It was very weird to be disconnected from the rest of the world. Very, very weird, because I was the closest to the event in some ways, and the furthest away from it because you had no cell coverage on the Royal Mall. They probably put up some sort of thing that blocked all cell coverage. So if you guys want me to do like like a recollection of the coronation, I can definitely do that as somebody who was there. But what we found out later, and again, we were completely disconnected from the outside world from about 9 o'clock on. So about 9 a.m., internet went down, cellular coverage went down. You couldn't see anything. We could hear the ceremony. I mean, we saw them leave, we saw them return, and you could hear the ceremony, you couldn't see it. And so it was very discombobulating because I had no clue what was going on. It was very, very weird. And so we were, there on the mile, sort of waiting for everything. And at one point, the procession had gone back to the palace. And so we are all standing there in the crowd, waiting and kind of ready to go down the rest of the mile to Buckingham Palace to the balcony. And it had come out later that the Republic movement was going to attempt to scare the horses. And there are a lot of horses at that event. And that would have been so dangerous, especially as we were trapped in there like sardines at one point. Like you're just standing there crushed in people. I'm like, oh my gosh, if somebody screams fire or gunfire or something, we're all going to die. It's going to be a stampede. There's nowhere to go. Like we're all trapped. We can't leave. And so it's a very, again, hugely a very, very strange sensation. Do not recommend. But one of the things that the Republic movement is attempting to do is definitely to cause a ruckus, gain attention, and these sorts of things. And they are quite good at it, you could say. Quite good at it. And they are definitely have a big presence, you could say, for sure. I got a little bit of a video grab yesterday from a video, and like there were a lot of people there. I have to say, yes, the banners were big. It's kind of interesting because some people said, well, it's just the banners are big. The banners are big. And I understand, yes, that the banners are big, guys. They are big. But when you actually look at some of this coverage, I mean, they were so good in how they placed themselves. I mean, most of all those people there, couple there, and stuff like that, they're all part of the Republic. Now, the rest of the crowd is kind of over here, and there's a decent amount of the rest of the crowd. Oops. But so much of this is definitely big, and I would argue starting to get a bit bigger. I think it's starting the ball is sort of starting to pick up steam a bit as it rolls down the hill. And it's very interesting to me because some people it's fascinating to see the reactions to this on social media because some people are going, oh, you're just a naysayer, you're just saying the bad things. Like no, the monarchy's fine. Oh, they're just a small group, there's just 10 people there. Like I've heard people say there were 10 people there, like just 20 people there. It just wasn't a big crowd at all. They did, I guess, disperse after everybody went in, so they didn't wait till later. And again, there's a lot of photographers up here. These are a different group of protesters right here, so you have more protesters. I don't even know if you can hear it quite as well, but it can get. There's Catherine and William, and we can play this a little bit. I don't know if you can hear it that well or not, but you could definitely hear the yelling inside the church when they were saying, not my king. Probably the biggest one will be for His Majesty. You can definitely hear a lot of booing, guys. You can definitely hear a lot of booing. You can actually hear the LGBT group over there. Those are the ones that one year, I think they're over there, that were behind me. So they're definitely not, let's say, maybe like super, super huge yet, but the questions over Andrew are something the monarchy definitely needs to answer. And yes, yeah, this is actually great. I agree with this. Wellness Journey today said, Lady C said it best, a handful of acorns will eventually grow into mighty oaks if nothing is done. Exactly. I see a lot of people who just kind of want to put their head down and kind of just like ignore it and just go, oh, the monarchy's fine. The monarchy's fine. There's just a couple of people over here. But the questions that exist over Andrew's behavior are 100% legitimate. They are 100% absolutely legitimate. concerns to have and concerns to reflect on. And the less and the more the monarchy seems to avoid answering some of those questions of behavior and these sorts of things and how they dealt with Andrew, the greater the scrutiny is going to come on the royals themselves for, let's say, not addressing Andrew, because it did happen under their roof. Yes, it wasn't all the royal family, but it, like, the apparatus of the system was what shielded Andrew for so long. And so the question becomes, how do you address it? How do you look at this situation and go, okay, yes, we are not fully culpable, because Andrew, of course, he is the main person here who committed wrong 150%. But we all played a role too. There was something within the system of the monarchy that I don't think it's wrong to admit obviously was broken. And I think it's healthy to have these discussions, which I see some monarchists being very like, we don't want to discuss this. This is fine. People are just dredging things up. Like, why don't you just move on in the press? It's like, no, these are abuses of power that are very serious. And the monarchy comes under even greater scrutiny because these are lifelong roles. And so if these are people are given lifelong positions and they are violating their responsibilities, they are violating the people's trust, like, what's wrong with answering those questions? What's wrong with getting results? And I don't think, obviously, not everybody agrees with Republic. Of course, some people might be anti-monarchy, but also the anti-the Republic movement. But I think the royals do have a growing problem here. And it's partly because, as well, King Charles is not a popular fellow. He's not super popular with a lot of people. And his approval ratings are middling at best. They're middling. So it's not like you have Charles really stymieing the negativity. It's actually really William and Catherine who are the only ones, you could say, who are in some ways protecting the monarchy because people like them so much, which is why I found this very interesting, because I saw this on signs and I see this on the website here as well for Republic. William is being dragged into this mess. Look, he is the first picture here. Actually, naturally, because we read left to right, guys. Even in my thumbnails, I put the most important person usually on the left-hand side. Sometimes I'll put the text there, but because we read left to right, your eye naturally gravitates towards the left here. And the positioning of William here, and actually a very good picture. This is a very clear picture. Charles's is actually quite, let's say, not as good a picture. It's a bit blurrier. I don't know if you can totally tell, but the quality of his image is much worse than William's. And Andrew, I would argue, maybe is sort of in the middle, but they chose a not so great picture of Charles. And it actually doesn't take much to buy a picture, really. And I firmly believe with every fiber of my being that, number one, William had literally very little involvement in the happenings with Andrew, especially trade envoy time. He was in college, he was dating, he was in the UK. Like, he had very little involvement in the decisions surrounding and hearing about what Andrew was doing as a trade envoy. William had probably, I would argue, very little contact about that. He was being an air ambulance pilot, like, he was in the military. He was not there listening to the dirty deeds of what was going on with Andrew. I believe Charles was in those circles, but I do not believe William was at all. I think it's completely disingenuous of Republic to put William in this picture and to wrap him in this at all. But see, the Republic knows if they can take William down with Andrew and Charles, they're going to win here. They are trying to smear William with something that was not his fault at all. Number two, William was the one who was saying, like, at least last year has been reported, he's been getting out there saying, hey, I was going to address the Andrew situation much more firmly than my father was going to. I was going to ask last year that he be stripped of his titles and placed in the line of succession. Like, William had nothing to do with the situation now. And again, you have to look hindsight is 2020. Obviously, we all know that. But looking at William, if Charles had taken William's advice rather than maybe the advice of his courtiers or maybe his own views or whatever, how much of a genius would Charles look right now if he had stripped everything of Andrew back in 2025 and now we're in Epstein territory now we had the Epstein mess. More pictures are coming out, all this stuff. How much of a genius would Charles look like now? He would look like an absolute genius. He might seem to be harsh, but he would have had control over the situation, because something I come back to time and time again, which is why I think Republic is definitely going to, I think, gain traction here, is because the Royals are not leading the PR battle here. They are reacting to it. They are following behind the frontline troops. They are allowing the disaster to happen to them rather than managing that disaster. Those are two different things. I mentioned it before. It's kind of like a lawyer who says, we have lawyer-client confidentiality. I don't care if you killed someone. Tell me everything you did, and I will do to the best of my power to prove you innocent, or something to that effect. The Royals have just waited for far too long here, and they did not take the chance that they had, which was very, very real, to pull Andrew aside or just to make these decisions and go, you might pout and whine and complain about this now, but this is a decision I have made and I am king and you are not. And I understand Charles's perspective here that yes, this will mess with the line of succession. This will be a historic moment. This will change what the future of the monarchy looks like in so many different ways. I 100% agree with that. I understand the risks. I understand how this might in some ways break the system. But unfortunately, the system is already broken, and you let it be broken first. This was not a situation that happened to you. You allowed this to happen. You had the opportunities. The monarchy has had, at this point, I would argue, close to probably 2 decades now to address this issue well, and they didn't. And now you're here. And William, unfortunately, is being dragged into this, and he has absolutely nothing, I don't think, to do with any of this. It's wildly unfair to William, horribly unfair to William and his wife, who I think didn't want anything to do with this, wanted Andrew punished, wanted him out of the picture in so many different ways. And yet, here he is. He is being dragged into this. And honestly, he has his father to blame at this point, because if Charles was smart, Charles would have done everything he could to shield his son. Because I just still don't understand, guys, what Charles's kind of strategy is here. I still don't quite understand, because it looks avoidance. It looks like you're avoiding answering the questions. And sometimes, yes, you need to have something carefully managed. You need to be carefully coached. I mean, part of Andrew's problem was he was so pompous and arrogant that he went on that Newsnight interview and shot himself in the foot. He could have, if he was smart in public relations, he could have definitely handled that interview. You'll notice really good people who really know their stuff when it comes to how to talk and engage on a topic are very adept at kind of weaving the truth and half truths and stuff through things and avoiding things in a very well done way. This could happen, but I just don't think Charles, and this may sound bad, I don't think really Charles has the energy. I don't think Charles really has the drive to address this problem the way it should be. I think part of this may come down to like age and of course his cancer battle and everything like that. And he's just kind of, I just don't think he can bring himself, because this would require a lot of effort, a lot of energy, a lot of focus to deal with. I just don't think Charles mentally right now is capable probably of doing that. And it's just so unfortunate. I mean, I genuinely feel bad. I genuinely feel bad for him, because I do think a lot of this is wildly unfair. But life is unfair. Life is unfair. And as they go through royal finances, that's going to be a thing that the government, I think, is going to search through. I've said this before. When it comes to the York girls, I'm not, unless they become working royals, I'm not and or there is an actual like criminal case that could be made. I don't think anybody has any business going through their finances trying to find something to like go, "Oh, look at this. This is bad." Because there could be a logical explanation for it. And when people have the drive, we've seen this in real life investigations and cop shows and these sorts of things. When the blinders are on and when you're so focused on finding something, you'll find anything. And I think it's wildly unfair to the York girls, even if they were doing some things they shouldn't have done, that their finances are raked through. I don't think that's fair to them. Unless they are working royals and working for the state, they are private citizens and have a right to privacy. And some of those same principles apply to the royals, because why should Williams, financials potentially be gone through? He had nothing to do with this Andrew situation. And I mean, to a certain extent, why Charles? Because Charles wasn't like part of everything related to Andrew. But what happens when you have a scandal like this is that everybody then comes under the chopping block in one way or another. Everybody's finances will be searched through, even if I would argue it's sort of unethical, it's unnecessary. And anything that's considered questionable, you might remember a couple of years ago, there was a big fuss that Queen Elizabeth had some investments in like the Cayman Islands. That was like a big deal. And I'm like, well, she's a rich person. She wants to invest her money well. Like I don't see an issue with that. But people with an agenda, people with a narrative, they find things, whether or not it's good or bad. They will find whatever thing they want and go, oh, look at that. Look at that. So wrong. That's so wrong there. Look. And it might be good. It might be bad. It might be nothing. But people, when they are told something, you need to find X. They're just looking for X, whatever it happens to be. And when the financiers are gone through, and we don't know how in depth these will be, but I don't think the royals will come out of it well. Even if there's really nothing there. The Republic movement right there, again, looking at this, they're going to grab anything. They're going to grab anything. Go and look at this. Look at this. Look at what the royals are doing. Well, they're spending money. They're making money. They have money, as if that's like a big surprise. It's like, yeah, they have money. Like, that's kind of the point. But you have these people sometimes who I think they just have a vendetta against people. Like, I understand. The royals are born into the lap of luxury. It's not fair, but so is life. Some people are born in immense poverty and nothing, and some people are born into obscene wealth. I think part of living life is understanding that life is unfair. And that's just part of being human, is that you don't get everything you want. You don't get sometimes the life you want. You're not maybe considered special in the way you would want to be. I would love to be 5'9". Am I 5'9"? No, I'm not. So like, I don't really care. But it's one of those things where I think some people obsess because they're jealous. Part of it just comes from simple jealousy. And so everything becomes twisted. And I think what we'll see a lot is twisting of good things into bad and bad things into good. And this is one of, yeah. Oh, a great example, Lisa. That car King Charles bought wasn't a good look at the time. Yes. I did have somebody say, which I didn't look into, so I do apologize, that it was a lease. But even still, it was like £130,000 car, not dollar car, pound car, which means it was closer to maybe 200,000 in US dollars. And it came out, I just can't remember when it came out, but was around the time all this Andrew stuff was coming out. And it was just bad optically. I don't care if it's good for the environment. Bring out your old beater car. Like, this is the time for the beater car. This is not the time to bring out the Rolls Royce. I can't remember what brand it was. It was some sort of, it wasn't a Rolls Royce. Actually, ironically, the beater car is a Rolls Royce, but it was some sort of new electronic car that Charles was showing off because, he's an environmentalist and this was part of his agenda. Just the optics are horrible. I mean, as a PR person, like, this is the time right now, if you are a royal, where nothing you do goes without the review of your PR person. Nothing you do goes without the review of your PR person, because every move right now must be carefully considered. And arriving in a 130,000-pound car, even if it was a lease, was just beyond stupid. The optics look terrible. The optics look absolutely terrible. And you're just fueling the Republic fire that already exists. Because part of the job sometimes, if you're royal, if you're a celebrity, what have you, is sort of kind of understanding and being aware of how things proceed. So, for example, what was it? P. Diddy, when he walked into his first day of court, he was, in this cardigan jacket, probably looking very, very much like Mr. Rogers from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood with a Bible in hand. It's like, I don't think that guy cracks open a Bible by any stretch of the imagination, but it's part of the performance. And honestly, sometimes that stuff can work well, but sometimes it can look really bad because we all know how fake it is. Or sometimes somebody is like on trial for embezzlement and they arrive with, a $20,000 Hermes purse. Like that's just dumb because you're just, clocking and it's like, oh, $20,000 purse. Her salary was $25,000. How does she afford this $20,000 purse? It's just those things. It's just about carefully considering perception, and it is everything. And even if there's a good explanation for X, Y, or Z, you don't want at this point, again, all of this is very careful wire working here we're doing here. Tiptoeing across a high wire above, the true two tray towers or something. This is just so like you have to be so deft in these situations. You have to just carefully navigate all this. Otherwise, you are going to find that, and Lady C, I think I 100% agree. Those couple of acorns that you just kind of dismissed, now they're honking oak trees and you've lost control of everything. Because I would even argue here that the BBC dropping the Commonwealth service, I can't remember. Let's see. Let me look up again why BBC dropped. Why did they do that? So the BBC said, our decision not to broadcast the Commonwealth Day ceremony in the same way we've done in previous years reflects the difficult choices we have to make in light of our funding changes. So they're blending funding. BBC News plans to cover these services across its platforms, including BBC One bulletins and rolling news channel. So the interesting thing there to consider as well is that the BBC, the public broadcaster of the country, that's government funded, by the way, did not think it was necessary to cover an event celebrating the Commonwealth, all the countries that make up part of what the head of the government, in this case King Charles, oversees. And so we didn't really think it necessary to do that. I think, yes, funding is some of it, but I honestly think I would not be surprised to find that there were some Republicans within the BBC going, oh, who gives a crap about the Commonwealth Day service? I certainly don't. And I think what you're seeing, and again, what is the gravest concern to the royal family in many ways is the erosion of, you could say, British culture. As British culture kind of gives way to wokeness and ideology and, trying to become so multicultural, it actually loses its cultural identity. That is a threat. And I think, honestly, the BBC not showing the Commonwealth ceremony is maybe a bit of reflection of that. Some people said it had gone too woke, but if it goes too woke, I mean, part of it is that they kind of lose, again, this perception of what the culture is in the UK. And I think that is a grave danger to the monarchy, something that the Republic movement can definitely sink its claws into. Because what you have in this situation as well, I've mentioned this before, but it's worth reiterating, is that if you are a public figure and you're going through a scandal, don't give the press any more ammunition than they already have. You again have to be ever more adept at navigating your public persona. I did see something here which I thought real quickly was good to mention as well. Bobby Australia says, William and Catherine, I'm sorry, but they do not need 5 homes. Give up Adelaide Cottage and the house in Scotland to the Crown Estate. So Adelaide Cottage, because it belongs to the Crown Estate, like, they've moved out, so they're out. They don't have, I don't think, any sort of, let's say, control over that whatsoever. But I will say, when it comes to Catherine and William, moving as much as they have doesn't necessarily look great either in some ways, because it started off as that they would kind of be, let's say, they wanted to, their home base would be Kensington Palace. That's what was said when they got the huge apartment 1A. And then it became, well, we don't really like London, so we're moving out of London. Okay. So they got Adelaide Cottage, which was small, but they still also had their home in Amner Hall. I'm not sure what home they have in Scotland. I'm not familiar with that unless it's part of something wrapped up in him and his role as the heir to the throne. And so Amner Hall is huge. Then we have Adelaide Cottage, which is smaller, but I always thought Adelaide Cottage was like, there's no way they're going to stay there forever. Like, it only had 4 bedrooms, and that basically takes care of all of them. They don't really have anywhere for guests to stay. So I knew they were going to move. And like, we understand that they need to find a place, but you also have to be cognizant of sometimes how things can look sort of bad. And Catherine and William, of course, William was very smart here in saying, we will pay market rate for our rent. So we are not doing the peppercorn thing like both Andrew and Edward and Sophie are doing. I think Edward and Sophie may fall under the chopping block a little bit, because their place is massive. Bagshot is huge. And once they become empty nesters, like, that place looks like it has 20 bedrooms. I was like, do they need 20 bed? Like, they were going to turn that place into like a hotel and a conference center at some point. It's that big. And so I think they may be kind of pushed a little bit in that direction of perhaps downsizing as well. I wonder if Sophie and Edward will fall under that. I would not be surprised if that's the case, to be honest. Because again, there's just so much pressure and pressure and pressure. And yes, somebody said that, Adelaide Cottage was sort of a trial run, Gretchen said, which was true, to see if they liked Windsor. And then she got sick. Very, very true. But again, and there's so many good reasons you could say. There's not, let's say, really bad reasons, but it's the perception by those who are looking for anything to rake you over the coals with. That's the thing. I don't really have that much of an issue with the moving so much, but it does, again, raise some questions that maybe you don't always want being kind of raised up in these sorts of things. And yeah, it's complicated. And honestly, there's no good answer, because Catherine and William needed a bigger place. I don't have any issue with that. They have 3 kids. I'm sure, especially with her cancer treatments, her mom was probably staying with them, maybe her sister from time to time. They have a nanny, and they don't have any live-in help, which I think is great. But, especially if you're sick, having somebody who's close on hand, if you're having a particularly bad day, is of course a good thing to have. And so that made it, I'm sure, a little bit more complicated. But it's one of those things where, again, it all comes down to perception. So that's one of the things that will get the royals, which is why everything needs to be, especially with there being so much intense pressure on the monarchy right now, everything needs to be handled with ever more care. And so before we move on from the Charles and the rest, the British royals here, before we get to the Yorks, I didn't want to also point out this new YouGov poll saying King Charles obviously has been invited to make his official state visit to the United States later this year. Do you think this should go ahead or be canceled? So this is a survey they did reflecting, obviously, as well, the military action the United States is taking in Iran, obviously the dislike of Trump, the Epstein files, these sorts of things. 36% say it should go ahead. 46% say it should be canceled, and 18% don't know. So obviously that's a bit concerning, because Charles is asked to do certain things on behalf of the government. So the government, in a way, could really be throwing him under the bus by going, yeah, you know what? You're still going. Even if we don't really want to participate, guess what? You get to. And it puts Charles in a tough spot here, because he is asked to do certain things on behalf of his government, which is his job. But at the same time, he risks again that some people may become more disenchanted with the monarchy, going, well, why are they doing this? Why are they cavorting with? I mean, I even get it sometimes on X. And it's like, I post a nice thing about royals and it's all about Epstein. It's like, that has nothing to do with this particular story. Like, if we have this, and they never comment about the Epstein stuff I post. It's very annoying because it's like you want to whine about certain things and not other things. It's like all the craziness there. And so I feel like this puts Charles in a little bit of a tough spot here. But I do think also as well, Charles is called to help smooth relations between two countries. And if Keir Starmer keeps putting his foot in his mouth with Trump, and they could get a better deal if they send Charles, well, send Charles. That's kind of the answer. So it is interesting to consider here. Lots going on. And the Royals, though, I will say again, guys, they're not out of the woods yet. This is perhaps going to be a long process. And unfortunately, the more it drags out, the more it drags everyone down with it. And I feel for William because I don't think he deserves this. I really don't think William deserves any of this at all. I think he deserves a father who takes care of certain things. Because if Charles leaves this mess to William, because part of this is, yes, Queen Elizabeth left some of this mess to Charles, even though Charles was behind a lot of the decisions, I think, regarding Andrew. There was portions of this that was left by Queen Elizabeth unresolved to Charles. And Charles might do the exact same thing to his son. And I know the question of abdication has come up. And I will say, like, we have heard a lot that Charles will never, ever abdicate. And obviously, with him waiting for so long, I think it would be really difficult to get him to abdicate. But looking at sort of what we've seen in the pattern of other European monarchies, obviously Spain being the most notable example of scandals, that once the king left, the former King Juan Carlos, the scandal went with him. It didn't really stick around too much, especially because King Felipe and Queen Letizia, I think, pretty much switched up course, worked really hard, and have created a stronger monarchy and a base for the monarchy since then. And Charles, I feel like, is just kind of floundering, kind of waiting, like kind of hoping. And again, I don't think he'll abdicate, but honestly, if he abdicates and let's say he makes all the big decisions as he abdicates, he leaves his son in a much stronger position than if he doesn't do anything here. Now, I understand. Again, people whine and complain and go, well, Parliament has to move. Parliament. I understand. But I don't think Parliament will move unless Charles is pushing them to. And Charles looks weak here. And I think the government and certain of members of the government who are not a fan of the monarchy, they smell the blood in the water. And they're like, well, we can just wait this out. He's not going to do anything. He's not going to push. He's just, doing the events he always does. He's not, let's say, addressing the situation. And that's just something that's, I think, really critically important in a lot of ways. It's important to be a leader. And Charles has the opportunity. Yes, he has to go through Parliament. But if Charles makes the public declaration of, hey, I'm the king of the United Kingdom. I determine in many ways how the monarchy looks. And we have decided to make a series of changes. We have come to these conclusions with the utmost respect for the institution, for my mother, for all the family members involved in these sorts of things. And I have officially decided as king, and I request Parliament to facilitate this decision, that I want to create a monarchy where we have less people, you could say, that are hangers on. No, he probably wouldn't say that. But I want the monarchy to reflect that really only working royals are in the line of succession. We are modernizing. And so this means that no Andrew or the York girls, no Harry and Meghan and their kids. We are so sorry about that. But we want the future to be strong here. We understand. We hear the people's concerns. We are aware of various things. And so we want to make these changes. Thank you for being part of this. We love you and want to support you, whatever. Sorry, that's like so, that's probably all over the place. But it's one of those things where if you do have an opportunity to be the leader here, I think Charles has that chance, and it doesn't look like he wants to take it. It looks like everything is happening to him and not that he's managing it. Lisa H says here, but no one is calling for the king to address these things like they did Queen Elizabeth when Diana died. I mean, I think they are. There are a lot of people wanting him to address the Andrew situation. What did the monarchy know? What did they do? When did they know stuff was going on with Andrew? Why didn't they deal with it earlier? These sorts of things. There are a lot of people asking those questions, and they deserve to be asked. They deserve to be asked. It's like a company going, hey, why didn't you do X, Y, and Z? You knew this person was embezzling. Why didn't you address the embezzlement? We now have negative balance here, and we've lost a whole ton of money. It's those sorts of things. It's one of those situations where addressing the situation is actually critically part of being king, being royal, being the leader here. And I don't know exactly what that'll look like, but I think Charles is running out of time to come up with a good response here. Because again, the Republic movement is biting at his heels, and they're looking for anything. And he's sort of handing everything to them on a silver platter, going, well, I'm not going to do anything. Here you go. And like, I just find that so sad. I just wish that wasn't the case. So anyways, guys, that is what we have for the British Royals. And I have seen a couple of people in the comments. Yes, guys, we had our daylight savings on Sunday. So I had sort of forgotten about that. So I am now 4 hours different than the UK and 5 hours different from most of mainland Europe. So if this was an hour earlier, I do apologize, because for me, it's on time. And if you're in the States, it's on time. But for, I guess the rest of the world, it's probably an hour off. Do apologize. There's just a little bit of weird time in this space of the year. So it's just kind of funny. I had to be very aware of it for Dan's show, because Dan, like, I think they forget. And so usually around this time of year, I'm like, oh, I gotta look. Because if I don't look, I'll be either late or early. And I don't want to be late. And so yeah, just fun. So let's go out and there were some super chats and things that came in. We have Angela Dawn, who's been a member for 28 months, who said, do you think King Charles is sheltered from the negative press? I mean, that definitely could be a possibility, that he's sort of kind of ignoring it, or people just don't want to bring him some of the things. And of course, don't look at everything, guys. I don't look at every negative comment. There's some things where if I come across them on X, like sometimes I read them to make sure, like, okay, is this person really being that nasty? Oh, they are? Okay, hide and block. You can't, like, I don't really seek out certain things because it would just drive you crazy. You can't handle getting constant negative feedback. However, what we've also heard is that when it comes to Andrew, like, people didn't tell the queen things because they knew she didn't want to hear them and would not hear it from them. And that's concerning if Charles is doing that, or not doing that, but his staffer is like, well, he won't take this news well, so I guess we won't tell him. And then it blows up in everybody's face again. Like, I can see that happening. And I'm like, all right, Carol gifted 1 Royal News Network membership. Thank you so much, Carol. You also sent a super chat saying the Mariusburg Homeby case has some of the details that are disturbing. It definitely does. It definitely does. We had the roommate of the Frogner woman, I guess, testified and was about how he trashed their apartment and everything. And he's just, I would argue, a very just disturbed young man. And Carol also gave another super chat. Thank you so much, Carol, saying, yet Charles hasn't addressed the situation, will not identify the problem and provide action plan. Charles will not address Andrew or Harry until a fire is lit under him. Yeah, that's what it looks like. And he only makes decisions once, like, the decision is forced upon him. And again, that's just not a great look. Just not a good look. You want to, if you are the person in charge of X situation, you want to take control of that. And that's not always pleasant. I get it. I get it. It's not always pleasant. But if you don't take control of it, guess what? Somebody else will, and it won't be to your benefit. Oh, Christina gifted one Royal News Network membership. Why, thank you so much, Christina. And we have Teresa as well, who gave a 10-pound super chat. Thank you, Teresa. Saying King Charles III is getting the reputation King Charles I had. He's going to end his family. Yes, he has cancer, but so do many people. But they get their houses in order, so he needs to hand over the crown to Prince William. Yeah, just don't think he will, because unfortunately he's waited so long. This is, I think, the really unfortunate sort of, like, it was a blessing that Queen Elizabeth II had a really long life, but we're also seeing how it was a little bit of a curse, because much like a company that's had the same CEO for 60 years or something, once that person leaves or departs, you all of a sudden realize all the problems that had always existed that people were able to cover up because the system allowed them to. There was like a complacency, a feeling of, oh, we can't rock the boat, we can't change things, these sorts of things. And I think that's unfortunately been a little bit of the British problem, is that they just coasted for so long. And the respect and love for Queen Elizabeth was so great that they didn't really have to address the problems. But now the problems are like smacking them in the face like a dead fish. And they're just kind of there going, oh my gosh, what do we do? What do we do? I don't know what to do. And you feel it. And yes, maybe this is very much an American perspective. So I do apologize to my British friends out there. But one of the things that you could say America is quite good at in some ways is being more aggressive on things. Not necessarily always in a bad way, but more assertive. More like kind of going at something really hardcore. And I feel like the Brits need a little bit of somebody who is like that right now, who's able to do the hardcore things, able to really think through all these things all the time. Because you almost need somebody who's literally there as basically somebody poking a mirror in your face all the time. And really, your job is not to see everything. Because like if I hired an assistant, I would say, you know what? I don't want to look at these things because it kind of drags my mood down, but it's not you, so you're okay. Can you go and look at this account or that account? Can you report them for X, Y, or Z? Or can you see what they're saying? Do we need to address this? How do we report these sorts of things? You have somebody who can do that. So the royal family needs somebody who knows all the badness and is able to kind of search through and go, okay, these are the things that we need to address. And it just needs to be, I think, more robust. I hate to say it, but this just feels very slow, very antiquated, very, very much keep calm and carry on. And I do believe in keeping calm and carrying on. However, you also need to address the problem, because keeping calm and carrying on is avoidance in certain circumstances. And sometimes avoidance, yes. If there's a dumb story out there like hashtag where is Kate, I wouldn't say ever publicly address it, but maybe figure out some way to do that more, let's say, online or something. I don't know, because that got really, really ridiculous and sort of out of control. That's, again, another example of the royal family letting something go out of control. And they should have addressed it earlier. I mean, they did. I mean, I would almost say the statement should be, and I realize I'm kind of meandering around, but the statement should have almost been, you guys are idiots. We literally told you she would not be back until March. It is not March. Do you see the date on the calendar? This is not rocket science, people. Like, let's not be idiots. That's literally been the response to hashtag where is Kate, because it was so dumb. Like, they said she would not be back until the end of March. And then like in February or like mid-March or whatever, because of the picture and everything, everybody's freaking out and just being idiots. And I think the royal family should have called them idiots and moved on. I realize I can't do that, but that would have been my suggestion. But anyways, this has been a consistent pattern now. I think, Harry and Meghan are a symptom of it as well. We're just avoiding it. And it'll just go away. Seems to be the philosophy, or we'll rise above by continuing to work. And I understand the philosophy. I understand it. I understand the perspective you're coming from, why you think it works, how this has worked in the past, and these sorts of things. But that is not working now. And honestly, it doesn't really work in the modern age either. You've had plenty of instances at this point of things spiraling out of control because you refuse to engage in certain ways. And I feel like with other royal families, it's not as much of an issue. It just seems to be the Brits and, well, the Norwegians, but the Norwegians are their own special case. So, anyways, just sharing. And we have Carol who gifted a super chat. Thank you so much, Carol. And he said, again, Charles wants to be known as a green king. Instead, he should be in survival mode where he looks at the monarchy and sees how they survive. Charles is ignoring his family history like King George V. Yes, I would agree with that. I think Charles is sometimes more concerned about the trees and the birds and the bees and things. So that'll be his legacy. I'm kind of, saying that facetiously there in regard to his environmentalism. Now, there's nothing wrong with being environmentally savvy, of course, but that's not the situation you've been dealt. You have not been dealt this sort of kind of laissez-faire kind of coasting monarchy. You inherited a monarchy in crisis that's continuing to devolve into greater and greater crises. And you're sort of refusing to acknowledge that, refusing to address it. And yes, it will blow up in your face and in your son's face. And so best to address this now rather than just going, "Na, na, 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 green," or something, or having a movie premiere, the movie premiere for your documentary, at Windsor Castle. And it's like, oh, look, the first time Windsor Castle has been used as a film premiere. I was like, well, that might become more common if Windsor Castle is no longer held by the royal family and that the government takes it over officially. And Charles loses all positions and roles. Oh, wouldn't you know it? It's up for free for anybody, or not up for free, but anybody can rent it, like these sorts of things. He did not inherit, he inherited a monarchy and that he was largely in charge of at the time, as Queen Elizabeth was obviously fairly ill at that point. So he had a fair amount of control for a while and just really wanted, I think, to just basically have a reign like his mom in some ways. But his mom also dealt with crises. This is a crisis that has to be dealt with as if it's a crisis. Yes, Andrew was a bad actor. Nobody's denying that. Andrew is a sleaze, a slimeball. X, Y, and Z, list all the things. All the things. He's there. He's done. But that doesn't matter. It is your throne. Do you want it or not? Because that's what's being offered here. All right, we have Eva, who gifted 5 Royal News Network memberships. Why, thank you so much, Eva Williamson, 15. And we have Agent Kazdu, who became a YouTube member. Why, thank you so much, Agent Kazdu. And we also have Teresa Holtham, gifted 1 Royal News Network membership. Why, thank you so much, Teresa. I really, really do appreciate it. And so let's go ahead and move on a bit to just covering a little bit of Sarah. There's been some reports and talks that she attempted to sell a book and it didn't go well. So she's groveling to Epstein, just got worse. Oh, latest email is barely believable. So we got more emails because more keeps coming out. And she stressed, of course, that, him being interviewed was a terrible error and she had nothing to do with Epstein, but has changed her tune. And she's asking for money for the girls. So this is something that kind of keeps popping up, is how often Fergie would not only ask for money from Epstein, but for her girls and these sorts of things, and how much were the girls' lifestyles funded by Epstein. Like, this has become a huge question and one that will have to be answered at some point. And obviously, Sarah, we still don't know quite where she is. She's still sort of in hiding, you could say, but she has a lot to answer for, much like Andrew, but in different ways. At least she wasn't a public figure, so she can't be tried in relation to public, like Andrew's, whatever his charges, violating public trust or something, whatever it is, basically abusing a political position and position of power is what he's being charged with at this point, or suspect he will be charged with. And so Fergie doesn't have that, but she definitely, so much of this and so much of Andrew's relationship with Epstein is tied up in the fact that Fergie cannot stop spending money. and she constantly gets herself into debt. And Andrew has to bail her out. And he goes to nefarious people to help bail her out. I would be curious how much money Sarah has actually gone through in her life, because honestly, her clothes don't look even that impressive. Like, what does she spend her money on? That is what I would love to know. Like, what did she like? Do we have like a bunch of Hermes hanging out around there somewhere in a closet? I mean, at least she could sell that and make some money. That's the advantage of getting things from a designer, is that you can buy them and like resell them if you need to. So it's just, oh, all over the place with her. She obviously tried to sell a book about herself, but and Epstein, but people don't want to be seen as capitalizing off the Epstein, so they didn't buy that. But so many questions remain, and we do have an update on Princess Eugenie, who has removed herself from her anti-slavery charity and has scrubbed her from the website. So the charity had once hailed Eugenie's work as across the board with leaders in the fight against modern slavery, but now the royal profile has been removed entirely after a 7-year partnership with the group. I was seeing if it had the name up there, and it actually really doesn't. So a statement read, after 7 years, our patronage from Her Royal Highness Princess Eugenie of York has come to an end. We thank the princess very much for her support for Anti-Slavery International. We hope that she continues to work to end slavery for good and deliver freedom for everyone. Woo. That's sort of backhanded there, but you understand where they're coming from. So just absolutely, it's absolutely crazy for sure. And I can't say I'm surprised. It took a while for it to happen, but they the York girls, and I'll just still continue to call them York girls. I know they're in their 30s, almost 40s, or getting close to 40s, but I don't care. I'll just still call them the York girls. They are, I mean, they're screwed in so many ways. I think they would be so much better served just to come out and go, I'll actually share real quickly here. I think I shared it with myself. Yeah. My picture from them at the Queen's Platinum Jubilee service at Thanksgiving. And so the girls here, this was from a not so great camera from very, very far away. It's actually, these pictures actually impressed me somewhat because it's a really bad camera. But I mean, I do feel sorry for them because they didn't do any of this, but they're also their daughters, their parents' children. They were probably involved in at least some of this. And so they just can't totally get away from it. And it's just going to continue to fester. And that's why I think they would almost be best served themselves to give up their titles and say publicly, you know what, we will officially give up using our titles. We have given them back. And we look forward to doing as we have always done, which is, you know, work privately, independently, be close to our family. And also we have certain patronages that we continue to support regardless of whatever. So yeah. So Sir Squirrel Lot says, I'm struggling with the York women, especially since Zara and Peter have subtly cashed in on their connections. They 100% have. You can actually see Zara back there in the pink. That's Zara. They 100% have cashed in on their connections, Zara and Peter. It hasn't been quite as, let's say, public in a way because they don't have royal titles, but they are far from removed from, like, they have made a lot of money off being connected to the royal family, Zara and Peter. So that's definitely there. But on to Marius Borgholmby here a little bit. And the first is that he is not leaving his jail cell. So this was sort of an interesting bit because if you remember, he was arrested in February, right before his trial, and was supposed to be held for 6 weeks for violating his restraining order and threatening the woman who's most of the cases is regarding with a knife. And so he threatened her and he was held in jail because of it. And he apparently asked for release and he was denied that. So he could technically be released if he wanted to be, but the court came to a different conclusion, which I'm I think it's the right one. So it says here the court believes. So this is in quotes. This is how they do it in certain outlets in Europe. They will use quotation marks. They also use dashes, just as an FYI. The court believes that continued imprisonment is sufficiently justified and that does not constitute a disproportionate intervention. The court refers to the seriousness and scope of the case, as well as the strong risk of repetition. So he's most likely going to repeat offend. So keep him in the slammer is sort of the general consensus. And I think that's 100% right. I think that's 100% right. And he is just, he's so incredibly, I think, disturbed. And I think his family is in severe, severe denial. And so I did find this rather interesting. So this is from the woman who is the roommate of the apartment he thrashed. So this is a knife he stuck in the wall, by the way. This knife. He stuck this in the wall right here. So this is from NRK, and it does automatically translate because I use Chrome. And so she was asked about the events on August 4th, which led to his first arrest in 2024. And so she was told by her roommate that the apartment had been ransacked and that there was a knife in the wall. And she says on the stand, so I thought, okay, but how bad can it really be? And so she returned to the apartment and then said, then I see that it's actually destroyed. There are pieces of glass everywhere on the bed. The chandelier is gone. The mirror is hanging and sloshing over the dressing table, she says. And then somehow I understand the reality of what has happened here. She said, but I tried to lighten the mood a bit during the phone call, which was perhaps also the reason why I thought, okay, but how bad can the apartment really look? And I don't think we've seen the full effect of the destruction of the apartment, and he has threatened people with a knife, and I believe his father did as well. So it's like, this is like such a long time coming. So he is grilled as well by his defense attorney. And so of the 40 charges he has, half are against this 29-year-old woman. So in terms of not against her and the fact that she committed the crimes, but against her in that she is the violated party. So he is charged with 1 count of aggravated assault, 1 count of assault, 2 counts of malicious damage, 3 counts of sexually offensive filming/photography, 7 counts of reckless conduct, and 7 counts of violating the no contact order. Though to be fair, she also violated the no contact order. So it's one of those situations where it's a sort of complex because when it comes to this case, it's one of those of a relationship situation, like an abusive dynamic. It's like, why did you go back? You know, he was abusive. Why did you go back? Those sorts of things. It says, we have never talked about anything other than what she wants me as a defense attorney, but Marius has said in the interrogation quite early that she should change defense attorneys. So it appears scary to him. I understand that. And I also use defense lawyers being disliked by their defendants. And I understand that too, because I'm also on that side. So talking about his lawyers, lots of pressure. And so this is one of his defense attorneys, Met Yvonne Larson. So this case is just going to continue to go. It should be wrapping up here within the next week or two. So we're getting towards the end. And Lisa says, thank goodness she wasn't home. The girlfriend was home. The roommate wasn't, but the girlfriend was. So just putting that out there. So yeah, the trial is still going on. I think, I want to say next week or the week after is when it will officially conclude. I want to say it's actually maybe the end of next week it'll officially conclude. So this case is, we've heard about him choking women, being violent towards them, secretly recording them. And of course, he never remembers recording them when they're in vulnerable, sexually compromised positions. He always remembers doing things before and afterwards, but never during the crime. So he is, I think, a deeply disturbed guy. I think it is 100% correct for the court to remand him to continue to be in custody. He has obviously a lot of resources from his parents to leave the country, or he's violated things again and again and again. And she, Metamara, has been widely since the Epstein file releases, and I still need to go through all of her aspects with the Epstein file, but with moving in very oops, sorry. With moving in various things, I haven't had a chance to do that yet. But oh, she's like, there was a lot going on there, and she obviously had a relationship with Epstein. So much of this is just wildly, wildly disturbing, and we shall see where it ends up. I hope, even though like all the relationships in this case are complicated because he had an intimate relationship with all of them, even if it was for a night. So that makes some aspects of this case a little bit more complicated and less cut and dried. Not to say he's not guilty, but understanding that it's not like he attacked a stranger or something like that. So it we will see where this case ends. I think he deserves a guilty verdict, but that is up to the judge in this case, I believe it is, or a series of judges, and they shall decide. Which I think is almost better because hopefully the judge has more discernment than sometimes a member of the jury can't totally kind of differentiate between, because there can be violence that happens in within an intimate relationship and or violations and these sorts of things, and some people just can't quite comprehend that, which is quite sad. And so yes, that'll be a big case. So we will see again where it resides. But guys, that is all I have for you. Although I do have a little itty bitty bit thing that I thought was kind of interesting. So I will share it here just really, really quickly. It's very, very short. So it's about Crown Princess Victoria of Sweden. I saw this on Bill Blotted. And she's at the Paralympic Games. And obviously, Sweden and Norway crushed at the Winter Games. The Scandinavian countries do quite well. But I guess at the Winter Paralympics compared to the regular Olympics, both Russia and Belarus are competing. And in what's the word I'm looking for? In like a silent form of protest, neither Victoria or other representatives of Sweden are spectators in events where Russia and Belarus are competing. So I thought that was kind of interesting to share. But guys, that is all we have for today's edition of the Crown Report. Thank you so much for watching. And I have to admit, guys, I don't know if it's because I talk so much now for a living. I really need to find obviously throat coat is really good, but when I get done with these live streams, honestly, my throat feels like a little raw and stuff, which didn't used to happen before. So yeah, just interesting. So St. Elmo's fire is how do you spell Metamara? So hold on. So let me show. We'll go to the Norwegian royal family website here. And yeah, that is how you spell her name. Mette Marit. Probably not pronouncing it right. It's interesting though, because I feel like sometimes I'm pretty close to pronouncing something correctly. But I think sometimes because of the mic situation, it just doesn't come across quite well. So that's just some food for thought for people who give me a little bit of flack for that. All right. So Stacy says warm salt water gargle is always good. Yeah, I really do need to. I think because of I have to talk so much for these things, it really is sort of starting to actually affect my throat a little bit, which is crazy. Hey, Bertazza says, hi, Brittany. Hi, everyone. Just missed the live, but we'll catch on replay, and I'm sending my love. Why, thank you. Seabass says, enjoy the week, everyone. Sir Squirrelot says, did Harry lose his case security? We haven't heard about the security situation, and his other case remains ongoing. But basically, these celebrities are bringing allegations, and the press keeps going, no, that's just not true. It's just not true. We heard it elsewhere. And I honestly hope, I understand there were probably some violations and some things that shouldn't have happened. 100% get that. But at the same time, I think a lot of this is overblown. And I kind of hope they lose. Does that make me bad? But I can hope they lose. So St. Elmo's Fire says, if I feel a jury would be intimidated and not feel comfortable finding him guilty. I don't think that would be a big issue, but I don't think there's an actual jury. I think it's just a judge. Bobby Australia says you are pronouncing it right. Wait, thank you. I get like so many people who give me like different things, and sometimes like people like I'll get a whole list and like I feel like all of them are different pronunciations. Like, oh my gosh. Lady Amber A says, do you think William will change the house name now after Andrew Mountbatten wins their situation? I don't think he'll do that. I don't think he really has anything to change it to, but I think he'll make a big change. Sarah Moose says you mispronounce Queen Rainia's name. It's Rania, not Rainia. Ah, okay. Rania. African transplant said the best thing you could throw is from Taiwan or Hong Kong. Sure, it comes from one of those. If you type in Nin Jiam Pia coat, a great throat coat will come up. All right. Sounds good. Oh, Becky, great. Did Princess Michael have a stroke recently? That's been what's reported, but I don't think we've gotten anything like officially confirmed, like from her family. So Sharon says, my voice too, when I get with my sister. Diana says, have your doctor check your throat. Yeah, that might be necessary at some point. Bobby says, I looked. Yes, it seems as though Harry has lost his security case. The loss was upheld by a decision last May. Yes, but he is getting this additional review. And so this additional review may change the outcome. So he lost the case. But part of Harry's argument was that he needed this whole security evaluation. So they're doing the evaluation right now. And depending on the results of the evaluation, he may have a case to actually claim to get security again. Jill C says, allergy time of year has begun. It has. Susan said, yes, Becky, supposedly bedbound. Riley's US_US says, hypocrite Harry will strike again in Australia. He will. They'll step on it so bad. Becky said, at first losing Helen, now her. Yeah, Lynn Gideon says, it sounds like a civil case is going very badly. Defense is apparently able to show his friends were the source of the info. Well, and there's a lot of other celebrities involved in this as well. It's not just Harry, so lots of situations. Riley's US says, hates the family, loves the titles. It's the only thing him and Meghan can lord over the Hollywood celebrities. Exactly. Because certainly it's not success of the industry. Later, 2000 says, Brittany, consider seeing a voice coach or ears, nose, and throat specialist. I may have to. Because like just at the end, I just feel it a little bit. And it's just like, I don't have my water bottle, unfortunately. Amber A says, it could become the House of Kensington. Could be, but I just don't think they will. St. Elmo's Fire says, thank you. B. Wing says, I don't feel any sympathy for King Charles. It was a lack of action against his brother and rogue son. The reason for the monarchy is now in jeopardy. Very, very true. Bobby says, Ravik review again. It's not it's a Ravik review technically. It's some sort of review. St. Elmo's Fire says, Rebecca English got her revenge. Very good for her. Margaret Mason says, IPP given to him would be disastrous. Jordan, equal immunity. Yeah, it would be bad. Grace says, breathe from your stomach muscles, not your throat when you talk. Okay. I may have to work on that. Seabass says, I hope he loses both court and security. Bobby says, 735 sympathies to Australia. B. Max says, B, you may need to look up YouTube videos on how to properly speak from your mask instead of your throat. Public speakers, performers, theaters, all go through this at some point. Probably. Sir Scrolla says, it's not going down well down under. Boo, how's your dad? Gretchen says, hydrate, sleep well, avoid mints and the like. Rest your voice when you're not on. Was a court trainer for years. These worked for me. Thank you. Yes, I kind of like, I would film something else, but honestly, I may just rest my voice after this and just kind of chill a little bit. Susan says, odd that the review was supposed to be done in January. I mean, that might take some time. Becky says the name is just fine. Carol says, awesome video about Meghan's unethical business practices. I agree with you. Why, thank you. Yes, it's just really unethical. It just really is, in my opinion. I debated, kind of dragged my feet finally getting the edit done because it was a little bit like, you have to be very careful, obviously, with defamation and stuff, which is why I said it's my opinion. And if her team can come up and show me other reasons why we're raising the prices $2 on things within the span of like a month, I'm all for it. But it just seems like it's just really twisted, I would say. But somebody did say, and I didn't look, so maybe this would be an interesting moment to look real quick. But somebody has said that when it comes to As Ever, oh, you know what? And this is actually kind of interesting. Hold on. So I'm on the Wayback Machine website. You can see, guys, the most traffic happened in the early in the year, and it definitely dropped off. They haven't done quite as much since. But they said that she has raised the prices on her other stocks. I'm just curious here real quick. The Wayback Machine will tell me or not. Let's do. Oh, she has. This was $14, guys. Now it is $15 for that. Oh, and gosh, guys, the latest stunt. Have you seen this? So, something special for you. Spend $150 freaking dollars. Spend $150 and she'll gift you a $14 bar of chocolate. Like that's highway robbery. That's Megan, honey, you like that you scream desperate. You scream desperate to like sell stuff, and that's like disgusting. Anyways, but so yeah, let's see. Cuz that's like you're forcing people to buy a crap ton of stuff cuz you just need them to move your inventory. So yeah, she definitely raised the spread here by a buck compared to what it was originally. That's not, let's say, super bad. Let's see. Flour sprinkles are still the same price. Honey is $28. Tea was $12. It's still $12. Okay, so the original, though, raspberry spread was just $9, and now it's $12. But she never sold this, guys. To be fair, she actually never sold individually the raspberry spread until like way, way later. But I guess I got a deal. So the honey is definitely increased in price. So she had the wild honey with honeycomb. She has sage, and that's $32 instead of the 28. So, anyways, just interesting. Riley says, poor William, he ain't perfect, nobody is, but he seems to have learned all the right lessons from his parents' mistakes. I think so. And I think his youth is able to let him have a better perspective. B. Wings says, King Charles is not even defending the heir to the throne. Burying his head in the sand will just make things worse. Exactly. Carol said, it is a threat assessment. St. Elmo's Fire said her testimony was fantastic, even with the seat of Chelsea on the plane. She at least gave a way it could easily have happened without hacking. Sarah Moose says, Brittany, I read the RF tweet yesterday of the king requesting Australia to welcome Harry. Would you explain if you want to? I don't think that's real. I don't think that's real at all. So I think you must be talking about this, but this is not in the past year. So that's not a direct reflection on Harry and Meghan at all. So I don't think so. Don't think that's what they meant. Mary said, try hot lemon and honey. Ooh. Bobby says, I don't think William will change the family name. It comes from, Queen Elizabeth. Len Gideon says, subscribed if you haven't already. Lady Amber A says, do others get the commercials during the live? Mine never did before. Yes. Sometimes, they do pop up. Abertasa says, so excited to get a little bit of live, but it's awesome because I'm here for the questions and comments. We'll be bummed those two get to Australia before I get back to see my hubby. Aw, I hope not. Riley says, Charles first couldn't handle Diana. At least have a decent relationship with her. Couldn't handle sketchy, skeevy Andrew. Couldn't handle spoiled entitled Harry. Very true. See, Elmo's Fire says, please do. It could be something like Bobby Kennedy or Savannah Guthrie, even though you do talk a lot. My throat is sore and I've not been able, been outside except to hang a fixture. Yeah, definitely could. Lynn Gideon says, yes, even Amazon points out the prices have gone up and down. True. Riley says, Megan's fans deserve to lose their money. I mean, I guess, but. Oh, Kate Coffee says, I can't wait to get my paw necklace. I think you'll love it. Carol said, that is when everyone found out about her on-hand inventory. Yes. Mary says, I wish the review would laugh Harry out of the room. I hope so. Montana May says she probably decided she needed more money, so raised the prices since her stuff does not sell well. She is definitely desperate. Yeah, she is. Seabass says it's all expensive for that junk. Yeah. And you don't even get to pick which like chocolate bar you get. You're just sent a random one. So you could get the really crappy, disgusting seeming white chocolate bar. Oh, Rhubarb and Custard says BBC is publicly funded. We have to pay for TV license even if we don't watch BBC's channels, which I think is crazy. Riley says Bridgerton has thousands of wigs and costumes. They throw premieres and parties around the world. Netflix is willing to spend money on their huge hits. They're walking away from as ever for a reason. Exactly. Becky says she's going to get bored really soon and just dump the whole thing. I think so. Lady says $150 for a chocolate bar. If it was like $60, like, and you got a free chocolate bar, I would be okay. Like $150, like you are just, that's highway robbery, man. J Mansell says, hey, Brittany, has Harry and Meghan's team ever reached out to you about your videos? No. Seabass says, nothing I'd of high quality. Clifford said, hello, y'all. So we're getting close to the end here, guys. So I will just kind of pop off a few here. JC again says, Brittany, you bought those for work. I did. It's kind of nice. I am sort of like curious to try some of the things just out of sheer curiosity, but Sarah says, first, why this tweet now after Harry announced his tour? Second, thank goodness countries welcome the royal family members. Well, the tweet now because it was Commonwealth Day the next day. That's why the tweet about the Commonwealth. So I don't think anything bigger there. Riley says Netflix went all in with Beckham, Bridgerton, Stranger Things, and all their hits. But hey, drop as ever, less than a year, fail or much. Yes. So Squirrel Lot says, great show. Why, thank you. Shad says, I think Charles invited Andrew and Sarah back due to her cancer diagnosis. Yes. And I appreciate what he was trying to do, but obviously in hindsight, it was a bad move. Clifford says, is she raising her prices because of the war? No, I don't think so. I just think she doesn't know how to run a business and thinks, well, if I raise prices, I will make more money. So. Sarah says, that is not my point. I am not stupid. Well, I guess I don't quite understand your question then. Because I think it was just in relation to, obviously, Commonwealth. So I wouldn't read it really much into it. That's just my thought there. So Lynn Gideon says, how will Meghan spin as ever final demise? Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. That'll be interesting to see. I'm very curious how she'll spin it because she'll spin it as some sort of success because it was like Netflix was always planning to give it back to her, and I was like, they may have been planning. That may have been the plan, but I'm gonna guess that was supposed to be several months later, not now, or like years later, not now. So. And a lot of celebrity brands fail. Meghan Markle will not be the first. She will not be the last. But guys, we will go ahead and wrap this up here. Thank you so much for tuning in to this latest edition of the Crown Report. Have a wonderful, lovely afternoon, evening, wherever you are. And I shall speak to you again very soon. All right. Bye.